Is it possible that the coup in Niger can be a trick or a trap for Nigeria? If it is indeed a trick by who? And what is the reason for the trick or for this trap? Let's take a deep look at this. Remember that the coup in Niger is not the first coup in the past 2 to 3 years. We have had coup in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and we have had coup in Guinea. And all of these coups were successful. But there was something that happened before each coup. The Congress committee hearing, where a US congressman was interrogating a US military official and asking questions why US was responsible for the training of these military officers in African countries, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and in Guinea. And then after receiving such trainings from the US military, they end up staging a coup. Could there be a correlation between the US training of these military officials and the military officials actually staging a coup? On the other hand, notice how French President Emmanuel Macron has been running helter-skelter, trying to secure the economic future of France. He has run to China to seek bilateral arrangements with China, despite China being labeled by the US as their number one economic and military threat. The French President Emmanuel Macron has also run to the African Union. He has invited several African countries to come to France to discuss new economic partnership. He has run to BRICS. He has even asked to be invited to the BRICS nations. Why is France, through the French president, running helter-skelter, trying to secure new partnership outside of the alliance with the United States? To answer this question, one needs to draw a correlation between the activities of the US military training military officials in former French colonies to stage coup that eventually ends up kicking out French troops from those countries. Is there a running battle, a Cold War, or a secret power tussle between the US and France? It will appear as though the US or an elite group in the US or people in the military-industrial complex of the US are trying to use these military officers or military officials in former French colonies to stage coups to kick out French troops so they can have economic dominance over such countries. But what is funny is that after the US trained military officials in these former French colonies successfully staged their coups in their respective countries, and they successfully kick out the French in their respective countries, what we notice is that the headlines usually read that Wagner Group actually helped in kicking out French troops. That's what we read. But we don't read that US officials or the US military is actually involved in training these military officials in the former French colonies. We don't hear that. So there seems to be a sort of synergy between the United States and Russia as far as the Wagner factor is concerned. So all of this put together, it will appear that this is a trap. Because think about it. Is it possible for the over 1,000 US troops stationed in the US base in Niger to prevent the coup? Is it possible that the over 1,500 French troops stationed in Niger, is it possible they could have prevented the coup? Obviously. But it will appear that the United States is standing on the side, preventing France from taking action, because we hear that there was actually an invitation of the French special forces to come in to defend the deposed or the removed or the detained democratically elected president of Niger. There was that call, but the French actually developed cold feet in sending in their special forces. Could it be an intervention of the United States in the guise that it will appear to be colonization again, when in actual fact, the military leader in Niger right now, responsible for carrying out this coup, was actually also found in the US military base hours before the coup took place? These are questions that are begging for answers. But the takeaway from this is this: the Nigerian government, through the Nigerian president and ECOWAS, must not make the mistake of intervening in Niger militarily, because it will have dire consequences. What are these consequences? Two of them are predominant. Number one, it will open the floodgates for the terrorist groups in West Africa to unleash terror on all West African countries. Because if you look at the map of West Africa right now, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, they form almost 50% of the land size to the north of West Africa, against Nigeria, Benin Republic, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal, which form the other 50% to the south of West Africa. If there were to be a military intervention in Niger right now, led by Nigeria's president and the Nigerian military, what that would mean, according to the written threat by the leaders of the junta in Mali and the leader of the junta in Burkina Faso, is that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger will join forces to begin to fight the other blocks of the ECOWAS region. And of course, while that is going on, it will then open the floodgates for the terrorist groups to begin to infiltrate and cross borders across both regions, whether north or south of the ECOWAS sub-region. So the Nigerian military and the Nigerian president must take this into cognizance before taking such a decision. Another thing that the Nigerian military must consider, or the Nigerian president, Tinubu, must consider, is the fact that going into war may seem to be a trick off the sleeves of the military-industrial complex of the US, because going to war will simply deplete the military equipment, the military armory, the military arsenal of both groups in the ECOWAS sub-region. And when their equipment are depleted or diminished, what happens? They will need to restock. And in restocking, who do they go to? They will either go to Russia or go to the US or go to France or go to China. So eventually, that will weaken an already weak Nigerian economy while strengthening the economy in those regions. So the Nigerian president, Tinubu, must consider these factors seriously, because the coup in Niger might as well be a trap or a trick of the military-industrial complex in the US or in the US-led West. And it might just be a proxy battle that the US is tricking Nigeria into. Obviously, behind the scene, it appears that the US is very much interested in kicking out France or diminishing the powers of France. So they are doing it through proxies. Nigeria must not allow itself to be a proxy.